3, 2, 1. Actual recording is higher quality. I love that. Hear that. Okay,
Nice.
so looks like it's going live. I'm going to go live on Facebook. And so hopefully we should be live. So we are good to go. Trying something new, guys. Trying a new, you know how I like to try new stuff all the time. So I'm trying a new Riverside FM. Everybody said it's the coolest, greatest thing when you record podcasts. So we'll see how it goes. But I thought I'd have James Proctor and Eric Oakley on. They are out at Waco, Texas. They're with the second tour stop. Right for you guys, even this is basically a second tour stop, right? Or have you played something between? Okay, yeah. So second tour stop in Waco.
We both passed on the Memorial.
Yeah. So you've been there since what, Sunday and Monday?
I got there Sunday evening. I picked up James Monday evening. Yes. We're ripping.
Yeah. What are the conditions out like right now?
Not bad.
They're good. It was my first time playing the course, so we got to look at it today. We did some triples this morning, but the course looks great. It's pretty warm. I think the temperature's supposed to drop a lot when the tournament starts, but we're pushing 80s, and it was a little muggy out there.
So that's the first time you've played the Beast?
His first time.
First time at the Beast.
Wow. So does it live up to the hype that you've seen on video or you've heard people talk about?
Yeah, I've been watching the video for however long. It just kind of was in that timeline where I never able was to make it happen when I was teaching, but it's definitely a fun track. It's definitely more about the wooded holes. Obviously 17 and 18 are pretty iconic. But I love playing it, so I had a great time today. Playing triples, you don't really get a feel for how rough it can be, so I'm sure I'll do some more scrambling tomorrow and the next day, but definitely a fun track. I'm excited to play a tournament on it.
Now, Eric, you've played there several times. Did they make any changes to any of the holes or the layout at all?
The layout's been pretty much the same outside of hole 17 being the only one that has ever had legit changes outside of par changes. All the other changes have been very subtle. Trees have fallen. They've added some trees to some of the holes that are on some of the open holes, but it doesn't change the lines too much. It's I don't know. I've been here for 6 or 7 years now, if not more. So I missed last year, but it's I don't know. It feels comfortable. The shots don't change much. You just have to kind of understand what your bag is doing at the moment, and just kind of run that. Yeah. Figure out the shot, figure out the disc for the shot, even because you already know the shot. So it's just more about that stuff.
So you skipped last. You said you skipped last year. So you're this. So this will be the first year with your open bag.
Yeah.
So I'm assuming that makes quite a difference since you're not as, I don't want to say you were limited before, but in the sense you were limited, but is that made a big difference for this year?
Yeah, the distance driver backhands feel a lot more attainable. So a couple holes feel attackable even if the wind isn't good. So that's, I think, part of what was happening before is that I didn't trust my discs as much in the wind, and now I just have the right discs for the right shots, and I'm not having to sacrifice distance when throwing those shots. I do think that my game has also changed because I am leaning more on some backhand lines than I was before. I'm throwing a lot of Pathfinder fan grip mid-ranges, some berry and spice sidearms all over the place. So it's really nice in that regard of being able to all right, cool, I've thrown a bunch of these shots before, so just do it now, even though it's on a course that I played a bunch and I was used to my trilogy bag. So yeah, it's good.
What about you, James? How's that feel to be playing with an open bag?
It's been a lot of fun. I was still kind of getting used to it in Vegas, and Vegas was a different type of golf. Hang it out wide, play the wind, all that stuff. And now you really have to be precise, and stuff needs to drift the right way, and a 20-foot fade can really cost you. So some of the lines you have to be super particular with, and it's been a lot of fun kind of learning new discs. I've always been a huge KC Rock guy, and I actually threw one back in the bag for this course. But one thing I'm really liking with the Pathfinder, and I have a Wasp in my bag as well, is they're super torque resistant to where I I could throw the Pathfinder in a 400-foot hole, and I couldn't really do that with a rock. My rocks are more like hyzer flip. So it's changing my game a little bit. I think for the better. I think learning new disc kind of helps me slow it down and keep it smooth and really pop stuff consistently to see how the discs react. So yeah, it's been a lot of fun. Super confident with my bag, and I got to keep the same putters as last year, so that's a lot of people when they switch bags, that's one of the huge things. So for me, not having to change that was important. But yeah, the drivers and the fairways are pretty much, a lot of them are new, and so far they're flying great.
So that kind of brings up a point, and I'm sure you've been asked this before, but what I think is called the paradox of choice. In other words, now you have so much choice. It's like you could pick anything. Does that make it? It would seem like, wow, the possibilities are endless. But then it becomes almost like you're sitting at a candy store and you're like, what do I pick? I don't know what to pick. I have so I don't want to miss out on the best candy bar when I leave the store. So does that present a challenge in itself?
It does, and it did this off season. I had so many different variations of my bag when I was learning the new disc, and I'd play 4 or 5 rounds, and then I would have a couple discs in there that I'd never picked up at all, whether they were just too similar to a different mold or I didn't take time to learn it. And so discs were switching in and out constantly, and they still kind of are. I haven't really totally settled down my bag yet, and I think it'll keep changing depending on what style of courses we're on. But there's a ton of discs that I haven't even dove into yet. Discs that I haven't learned about, or I just don't need a replacement for it yet, but maybe I will in the future. Some were super easy to learn and love, and those were staples, and then kind of the fillers from there have been constantly switching in and out. But yeah, there's companies I haven't even thrown yet, and then huge companies that maybe I haven't tried this disc or that disc. So the possibilities are endless, and it does kind of play with your mind a little bit.
Yeah,
Especially
I would
'cause a lot
imagine
of
so.
companies now are making discs that look so sweet too.
I know, right?
I wanna throw that, but
I know. I think at the conference, I think they mentioned 64 different brands. I mean, that's just crazy how many brands are out there. So that brings
Think about
up
how many
to
molds they have as well.
yeah. That brings up
You have to be
okay.
confident though. You have to legit just pick the disc and go. Believe in yourself and believe in your shots. Like that's so much about the open bag is that like you have the right tools because you have every tool. So now it's all about just saying like, yeah, I'm good enough. Go.
So going along with the open bag, someone had a question on YouTube. What's the salary difference? And he doesn't need to know exact numbers, but give us an idea between throwing an open bag and having a one manufacturer sponsor. How has that really opened up a lot more for you as far as opportunities?
So if you look at it from a couple perspectives, because for some people, when you're talking about what you want as being a sponsored player, you're going to the company telling them, this is all I need. This is what I need to survive. This is what I need to make it happen. And what changes in that is that you can go to multiple companies and they can give you a small portion of what you need. And then all that collective gets you to what you need and likely more. Another part that really works into the open bag is if you work it into your contract and work it into what you're trying to do, you can get a signature disc or a tour fundraiser disc or some type of thing that allows for you to move more product and be supported by all these individual companies. And these companies are willing to do that because you're one of their players. And again, they're likely giving you a small amount salary or incentives in some way, but then on top of that, they're giving you this disc, which again is one of the best ways for companies to pay their players is through selling product and then taking some of those profits and giving it to the player.
Yeah.
So I think that is a enormous part of this whole concept that people don't fully understand when they are considering it. But I think the opportunities are endless. But the slots to fill for those teams are limited. Does that make sense? because
Unpack that a little bit.
so in an infinite disc and a clash disc, it's like they can support 8 to 12 players but giving them all like 30% or from each of those companies, they can give that much, but they're not going to be able to give 50 players 30%. Like there is a finite amount of spaces for this to happen. So I hope that more companies will look to having the multiple sponsored players, because they will be able to grab more players to their team, and even though that they aren't solely with that one player, like they aren't their sole like sponsor, they know that they're going to get plenty of promotion as long as it's worked into a contract and done well and it's communicated on both sides. I think that there's there's a lot there to it. So I think for the current companies that are willing to do open bag, I think those spots are the opportunities for those players that are in those spots are endless, but those spots are finite. And
Yeah.
it's all about if more companies are going to be willing to allow for more open bag policies, which is it's only time will tell. I hope so, because I think the opportunities for more collaboration with companies and players and being able to uh, you know to support each other more. Like, I know that in some ways, Clash and Thought Space Athletics have now started to build a relationship in their conversations. I know that Infinite, Clash, and Thought Space all have a great relationship together. So it's like those companies are all looking to support each other because they've found ways to be mutually beneficial rather than trying to be big business and it's us or nobody type of thing. And
Yeah.
that mentality, I think, is not necessarily wrong, but I don't know if it necessarily does enough to. It just doesn't do enough to help the growth of the sport, in my opinion. It helps the growth of those individuals in that company, but the sport in general doesn't grow. Where James and Maria and Drew and so many other players that have gotten the opportunity to do the open bag. Like, I mean, look at Scott Withers. He's able to keep his Resistance Disc sponsor, and he already has something great with Jeff Corns of Resistance Disc coming out for him to support his tour. And then also he's going to get stuff with Clash, and then he might even be able to extend those opportunities elsewhere. So that's I guess where my thought processing lands is that that's an incredible place to be in, that you can find ways to have multiple discs that support you
Yeah.
and support and also for you giving yourself more reasons to support the companies that are supporting you.
So, James, someone had a question on YouTube. He asks, is it, since you're touring more, does that mean you're no longer doing anything in education?
It means I'm doing a lot less in education. However, the school that I taught at back in California, I have a very good relationship with them. So, for example, this off season, I worked at that school, for 3 or 4 months just as a teacher's aide. So I stepped down a position, but it gave me the flexibility to leave in the middle of February and go on tour. And then, I plan on at the end of October when the tour's over, going back to that school and helping out for a couple months before hitting the road again. So, I haven't gone away completely, and it's something I'll return to when that time comes. But for now, I still get the best of both worlds, but my shift is focused to disc golf instead of education.
Tell us real quick, just in case people don't know exactly what you did or what you do when you're not disc golfing as far as education.
Yeah, so for the last 4.5 years, I was a special education teacher with an emphasis in math, and I taught at 2 different schools. The school in California was a non-public school for boys with emotional disturbance, so it was kind of more behavior focused. And then the school in Seattle was a public school with a SPED behavior program within that school, and so I taught some social skills classes, some math classes, and all that good stuff.
Nice. That's very
Yeah.
cool. What got you started? Like, what kind of?
Nice.
Yeah.
That's awesome, man.
Yeah. So.
I was going to school to teach high school math, and then my girlfriend at the time, her dad ran the school in California, Green Acre Homes, and so during my summer and winter breaks in college, I'd go back and I was a TA there, and just talking with him and building that relationship with with him, and then kind of falling in love with that work and helping out those who may not have been given a chance or, you know, need just some extra love. I just, you know, it just felt right for me. And so I switched my focus my second half of college and, yeah, got the degree in that.
Nice. So when you're not disc golfing, you're making impact on young people's lives. When Eric's not disc golfing, he's playing video games. That's beautiful. That's
True.
beautiful.
I mean, I did that before I started touring.
I'm
but yes,
teasing. I know. I know.
disc golf and video games right now is real life.
Okay, so let's talk a little bit. Let's get back to a little more disc golf. So you played Vegas. Vegas has some crazy weather, windy one day, cold the next day. But how does that really? Let's talk the start of the disc golf season. How does that, or does it, kind of set the tone for the season, or is that just kind of a warm up, or is that just like, you know what I'm saying? How does that set the tone for your mindset and your game when you go out to conditions like that and you're ready to play?
I feel like, and this might just be for me, it takes a little of the pressure off. You know, and one, I had new sponsors, I was learning new discs. Vegas is a thrower's course. If you can throw the disc well and inbounds, you're going to do great out there.
Yeah.
So, you know, you're not like focusing hitting gaps off the tee. There's, you know, the end of a course has some water, but you're not losing discs. You're not, you know, worried too much about being in bounds. You have room to play. So, like, I didn't really have any expectations. I just wanted to try the new disc, just have fun, kind of let the course come to me.
Mm-hmm.
But, you know, like some of these golf courses now, you're having to throw as hard as you can for all 18 shots, or, you know, you're throwing down a 600-foot tunnel. Like, have that more kind of pucker up. I need to execute this shot every time value. Vegas has that, but it feels like you can relax a little bit and kind of, you know, throw your 350-foot hyzer, throw, you know, whatever trusty disc. Thankfully, you know, the wind did kick up a lot, but it still didn't really feel like that Kansas wind can sometimes.
Yeah.
It's kind of, yeah, you can kind of ease into Vegas. You know, obviously some people out there, they're trying to win and that's all they'll accept. But I think everyone kind of takes it differently. You know, they have those Arizona tournaments can be a warm up for some people, and then Vegas, they're ready to go. For me, Vegas was kind of my warm up. So I wasn't holding too much weight on it, but yeah, I don't know.
Go right for you, Eric.
In the past, it's always I've always kind of been out that way when I've like vacationed or off seasoned in San Diego or Tucson and stuff like that. So it just felt like I was so ready for it. But flying out and playing Goat Hill, that was my warm up, and I just had such a fun time there. And then I think coming into Vegas, things for me just didn't click completely. I wasn't throwing the disc poorly. I just was having issues finishing holes, and some of it felt on my own doing, and some of it felt like it was just not in the cards for me. So that was a interesting part of understanding the battle that, you know, can happen and will happen on tour, is that there are going to be times when you can't understand why things are going wrong, but it's not, there's maybe not a reason to understand why they're going wrong. It's like, you just have to keep playing. You just have to keep learning. This is not going to be your tournament, and that's okay. And that's kind of what happened for me at Vegas. And usually at the start of the season, as things kick off, it's not to set the tone. It's just to kind of understand my foundation for the year. And I think the big positives that I'm able to take from this, yes, I might not be stoked about the finish of where I placed, but there was a lot of positives to be taken from Vegas, as for my attitude, as for how I handled adversity, because it usually has been something that makes my blood boil and I get really frustrated, and I show that frustration. But both at Goat Hill and at Vegas, I had really terrible things happen, and I made mistakes, and I had like unlucky things happen, and I had, you know, bad throws and bad putts happen. But my reaction to all of those was, okay, we're fine. And so that is I think the biggest step in the right direction. So when things do go well for me, having that type of attitude, I think, will allow for my game to be even better. I just have to be prepared for when it is better. So
Yeah.
let's hopefully let's be prepared to be better this weekend is all I can do.
Now, something outside of disc golf play, and without getting into the details of the lawsuits, but you've got Gannon Burr being sued by Prodigy. Then you've got Natalie Ryan suing the PDGA. And again, I'm not wanting to get into the details of the lawsuits, but I see a lot of people make jokes about disc golf's legitimate now. We've got lawsuits and things like that. And so how does that does it at all affect you as a player to see these types of things happening within the sport?
For me, I think what it's doing is it's going to keep everyone accountable. As far as on the Gannon side of things and the Prodigy side of things, it's like people need to be accountable. We need to not have things can't be verbally agreed upon. Things need to be written down and signed, and everything needs to be really clear. And if you're a company or you're a person who wants to sponsor somebody in disc golf, do not overpromise and underdeliver, because word is going to get out. Word is going to get out from all these companies. If players aren't being taken care of, this is what is going to now become a trend. Take care of your players. Do everything you're supposed to. If you put it in writing, do it. If it's not in writing, then I get it. Then it's a legal thing. But also do it because it's the right thing to do. In regards to the Natalie stuff, I think, there's the legal system is put in place, and there are things that are in certain states that have different laws. So that does bring this whole portion of it up, and I can't fault her for advocating for herself, and I hope that at the end of this there is a civil resolution, not something poor, because I think at the end of the day, the Disc Golf Pro Tour, the PDGA, Natalie Ryan, and the companies that she represents, I think we would all agree that we would love to see everybody come out of this better, not either one way or the other, where somebody feels slighted and it ends up poor. So yeah.
So James, as an athlete that deals with companies and legal contracts and stuff like that, how does that make you? Does it make you, or does it affect you? Just like, it's just another Tuesday or whatever, or does it just make you think harder about how things are negotiated and how agreements are established?
For me, it doesn't affect me a whole lot. I think, all of my deals are 1-year deals, and so, from my perspective, if you promise to do something for a year, you should do it, right? At the end of that year, if you're super unsatisfied, or like for me, then I sign a different contract. But for someone who's in a multi-year deal, that's where it gets kind of tricky. So, I don't know if we'll start having like player options after a year, or how they're going to word or format different contracts. But for me, I just I want to feel supported by the company. I want to do everything in my power to make those companies happy and support them back. So, the contracts are there for a reason, but I don't feel, pressured by it, or, it doesn't really affect how I play or how I live my day to day. I kind of do the same stuff I always have been. So.
Yeah, that's what I figured. Some people would, for some people, it might affect them in a big way, but for others, it's just it's happening. You see it and everything, but it's like when it comes down to it, it just comes down to you and the disc golf course and you getting out there and doing your thing. So, I just think it's interesting that. It always seems like every year there's something that causes some stir or something like that. And it just seems like these lawsuits are the beginning of the year type thing. Let me see if I can get this to work. We had Mr. Chaser Shay Stevens send in a speak pipe. I have never used it on this device, so this is going to be interesting. So we'll see how this works.
Yeah, it's like they can just send in little voice memos or something, like a voice
Yeah.
message.
But I don't know how it's going to work. So let's see. Open.
Oh, anything, Bobby.
I know. And let's see what happens.
Is it? Did you break it?
Are you hearing something?
We can't hear anything.
You can't hear anything?
No.
Oh, it was a really good question.
Bobby's just in there, just jiving.
I don't like. That's a good question. All right. Let me see if maybe this will work.
Shay from Philly, just hollering at us.
What's up, D-Game crew? This is Shay from Philly with a question for you about interference. I've had this stance well before recent events at Las Vegas, but of course they brought it up again. So I'm curious what your thoughts are. It says in the rules that in the case of intentional interference, the affected player has the right to either just play their shot as as it lays, or they can rethrow. In the event of unintentional interference, which is hitting a spotter or a distance person, hitting a spectator, whatever, the person just has to take the throw. It's part of the course. I've always found that to be just a imbalance, especially as your lead cars usually have bigger galleries, more potential targets. And for me in a park, like just a weird event, we had a guy ride a bike through a fairway and get hit by a disc. He was fine. We hit the bike, not him. But still, like, that guy on the bike wasn't there for anybody else. I mean, you can make the same argument for squirrels and whatever, but my question is, do you think that the rule for interference should just be standardized, that in the event of interference and set the conditions, that a player should have the option to either just take their lie as it is, or should be given the option to rethrow? My logic has always been, intent should not, have a influence on the victim. So I like to give the choice in both scenarios. That's my take. So tell me what you guys think. And as always, keep it real.
All right. What do you guys thoughts?
I don't think it should be. They're a part of the course at that point. I don't think you should get a rethrow, even if it does. Like, if we let's use the Anthony Barella example as the best one.
Right.
Of a person's out there doing stats. It's a cameraman. Anything could happen. If that was a goose that he hits and lands in the bunker, we're talking about something different. It's like there are geese all over the course. Paul hit a goose on 17. It's tough because, yes, should that spectator, spotter, person gotten out of the way? 100%. Absolutely. They were watching. They just didn't move. They aren't having a good day now. They feel terrible because they're out there trying to make the event better by giving better stats and by doing things. And they now just got in the way. And yes, that cost Anthony, but that is it just bundles down to a really unfortunate situation for all parties. For Anthony, for the person who got hit, for who got hit at the Pro Tour, for the tournament itself. That sucks for everyone. Nobody wins in that scenario, but there isn't a situation where, well, Anthony now just gets to rethrow, because now everyone else who's playing in the tournament is now losing as well, because Anthony, like, threw his one shot that he was prepared for, and he got a bad result. Like, he shouldn't get a redo. Like, it's just not how things work. There was a point back in the day where you could, before foot faults were a thing, but it was you had one warning and you got to rethrow when you foot fault.
Yeah, I remember. Yeah.
And there was a period of time that I believe you could call yourself on this. So it's that same concept of, we got rid of that for a reason, because I could see myself missing a 20-footer and I go, oh, fall forward. Oh, foot fault. I get my one. It's like basically one mulligan, jam, birdie. Okay, move on to the next hole. That also then leads into you're going against the integrity of the game and spirit of the game and everything. So that sucks. But people were doing that. It's a thing. It happened. So that is why we've gotten rid of that. And now ICE is like, that's an unfortunate thing. Best thing we can do is make sure that our stat keepers, spotters, spectators are more agile and vigilant and understanding of what's going on.
Yeah. James, has that ever happened to you, or ever been on a card where that happened to somebody? Something similar?
I've been on a card. I don't believe. Okay, it did happen to me, but I didn't know it. Music City 2018, I was going hyzer over the path, but it kind of went up and down, and you couldn't see it finish. And I pulled it right. I wasn't trying to go as wide. And I got there, and it was on the path, sitting OB, and I figured, okay, that sucks, but that was my fault. When I got up there, the gallery, somebody had told me, yeah, you were coming back in, but it hit someone and stayed out. And at that point, it's like, cool, I didn't need to know that. Now I'm a little more frustrated when, the result's not going to change. But yeah, it's something that, we can learn from. We can try to do better next time. Unfortunately, it's probably going to happen again, right? It's unavoidable to an extent, but, I'd say it happens less than once per tournament. So, it's unfortunate for that player. I think it's magnified because he was on film. I'm sure it happens to multiple players every event when people aren't paying attention, but because they're in 50th place, no one cares about it. So, it was magnified because he was playing for the lead. But, yeah, I think it's just unfortunate. We can try to learn from it, but it's kind of one of those things that we just have to deal with. There's there's everything that happens throughout the course of a whole tournament. Good luck, bad luck, good breaks, strokes that come and go here and there that shouldn't happen. So it's just kind of one of those things. It's like he nailed a nice putt and it spit back. You don't get a over if that happens either.
Right. I mean, the wind can change from one, on the same card, the wind can change from one player to the next. And just because one person got a gust of wind that the other person didn't get, doesn't mean that the person that got the gust gets a rethrow. And it is kind of unfortunate the way the internet is how they attack, because I didn't know that he was a stat guy. I mean, I kept seeing things about why was the guy even measuring? What does it matter? It's like, oh, he's the guy gathering the stats so that when you watched or when you're doing things, you get more information. You make and he's just trying to make the experience that much better. And it's an unfortunate incident. So that's interesting.
The chat's got some good points. I mean, Chasers, who asked the question, is in there, and it's in that place of he's trying to define what is intentional and what is unintentional when it comes to interference and things like that. This would be unintended interference, and that's just how it is. And Carla put in there, it's like it's unlike most sports. Is when a disc is flying OB, it's not dead yet. It's not. It can easily work back into play. We throw over out of bounds often on courses. So that's where it runs into a really difficult spot of spotters being in the way, spectators being in the way, unintended. I mean, the Memorial is a prime example of park goers are in the way. I watched a player throw on hole 17 at Fountain Hills, and he was throwing over a picnic, which is like, had he hit the picnic, does he get to rethrow because they didn't intend for it? So it's again, we're now nitpicking at what Chaser was saying, but it's in that realm of we just have to keep looking to grow and be better about having better crowd control, having spotters and everybody understand this situation will make us better. And I think that the rules are pretty set and standard in place that is just an unfortunate thing that happened to AB, and that's how it's going to live. And I think that's kind of what is fair. If you go to pass a ball, throw a football, and it hits the referee, it's not like you get to replay that down. He's a part of the course. He's a part of the field of play at that point. Yeah. It's like, and it might have been a touchdown had he not been in the way. But that's just kind of how it is. And that, I mean, as sports go, those are unlikely and unfortunate and rare. And when they happen, they suck. But it's like, we just have to be like, all right, let's look to take this and be better going forward.
That's what AB gets for throwing further than the rest of us.
Yeah, dude needs to chill. God, dude.
Stop throwing so far.
Take it easy. Save some distance for the rest of us, bro.
So what are some? I know AB's been around for a while, but he's not in this crowd. But is there any kind of shifting gears? Is there any young guns or young players that we should be looking out for on the disc golf tour that you guys have been watching?
Everyone I see now, I'm like, who is this kid that's beating me?
Yeah.
I mean, Zach Garlinghouse had himself a weekend out at Las Vegas Challenge. AKA Young Killa. He's a baller, lefty out of basically the Idlewild area of Cincinnati / Northern Kentucky. Great player, sponsored by Discraft. Awesome. Jake Mon recently picked up.
God,
so good. Evan Scott they're traveling together, two young kids that are out there just getting after it. Um, there are a handful other. I mean, look at Jacob Curtis. He's great player for Clash and Infinite, and he had himself a handful of tournaments at the start of the season, and we're hoping that he can get out and be on the road a little bit more. But it's all dependent on what he can help make happen, because it's tough, because not everybody's circumstances are the same. For like Jake Mon and Evan Scott, they were able to say, "Yep, cool, RV, let's go. We saved for this. Our family helped out for this, or sponsors helped, or whatever the case may be." They just had different circumstances. For somebody like Jacob, he's got to grind a little bit more. He's got to hustle a little bit more to help make those trips happen for himself. And yes, that is partially what sponsors are for, but sponsors can only do so much, because you have to have the return on investments and things like that from players. And if you pay too much for a player and then they don't bring enough back, it's tough. So there's risks and rewards being made. But Cupcake will be out at more events, and I know he will do well. And I think that we're in a place where we may end up seeing less up and coming players. And I say that because it is going to be, I think, more difficult to get on the Pro Tour going forward.
Really?
Because getting into events is not as easy. Signing up for these events, having a Pro Tour card like James and I do, we're not stressing. We're not thinking about, oh, am I really going to be able to sign up for this tournament? No, we're signed up. We're in. We're done. We're good. We're going. So that gives us a small advantage. So I think it's going to take something really special, but I hope that the Silver Series and the qualifiers for the Elite Series open the doors and do give good opportunities, and these players come out and show up.
Cole Dahlon's another one. I know, Oregon boy. I don't know how
Cole's good.
well known he is.
Sponsored by DGA now.
He's nasty.
He's very, very good.
Jake Mon, I played with last year at USCGC, and I did not know he was. What is he? 17?
Yeah,
like
young.
You'd think he's 25.
He looks old, but he's
built like a linebacker, but that kid is smooth.
Yeah,
like super smooth. So I expect to see his name up there a couple tournaments this year for sure.
Yeah.
Was he at Vegas?
Yeah.
He was not. I think this is their first event.
Okay.
I saw him them out there yesterday, and I mean, they're young shredders. It's like, give them. I had this conversation with Cyrus Watron, who's a younger player, up and coming player out of the Minnesota area, DD sponsored, and he was like freaking out about his distance and all this stuff, and he's like, I just feel like am I regressing? And I'm like, dude, chill. Time is on your side. Like, it doesn't need to be now. Like, you don't need to be throwing 500-600 feet right now. Like, you may never do that, but you don't need to do that right now. Like, allow your game to progress, allow things to happen, and trust the process. I think that we as human beings end up in a place where we want instant gratification. We want to know that I'm doing good right now. And I've even had that. I still have that, and I still have time. I'm in my mid-30s. I still have time in disc golf to do something well. I still have time to win tournaments. I still have time to make an impact via media or disc sales or course design or team managing or commentating or podcasting, or the list continues onward. Is that my time isn't out. Like, yeah, sometimes maybe competing at the elite level may like tailor off, and I'll do it more like the Sexton or Johnny McRae, or just like, Barry Schultz, where I pop in and out here and there. That may be in my future, but it doesn't mean my time is done. So I think people need to recognize time is on your side in more cases than you think. Even if you think you're getting older or the season's coming to an end, it's like you still have more tournaments to play. So plenty of time.
Absolutely. All right. Well, this was great. Just kind of catching up with you guys, see what's going on. Maybe we talked about a few topical things that's going on in disc golf, and hopefully we can do this on a regular basis. Talk about Waco a little bit. We already talked about it at the beginning as far as the courses and things like that, but what's kind of your mindset or your predictions for Waco this weekend?
Keep it clean, throw the disc well, putt well, and you'll shoot well. I think that's the one part about the next few days for me is going to be time on the green. I think I know every shot I want to throw off the tee. But I've been here before, and I've had 2 rounds in. James, I think is going to want to kind of dial in a couple holes. I'm speaking for you.
No, it's true though. You know,
Yeah.
my one practice round has been at triples, and we birdied every. Well,
Spoiler. Spoiler. Check the Whale Pants channel next week for more information.
So you know, I know this course has teeth, and I want to get some more reps off the tee. I think if you can slow it down, and you know, some of the fairways are tight, but if you can keep it in the fairway, you know, birdies and pars is kind of my mentality this season. I want to try to just keep progress up the fairway, keep it in bounds, keep birdie in play. You know, some of the more open holes I could see being tough in the wind, but they're pretty attackable. I know they changed some par on a couple ones, so you know, I think 15 with the gate in the road, I'm gonna play that one for 3 every time. But other than that, you know, most of these holes out here are birdieable with a clean tee shot. So, you know, for me, I'm just gonna try to stay consistent off the tee and knock down the putts when I have them.
Yeah.
Yeah, it seems like the woods part of the course is somewhat of a separator, but there's always something about those last few holes that it gets
Yeah.
really intense because you can really mess up if you've got a small lead. You can really mess up some shots.
They're holes that are in theory easy to par,
Yeah.
but they I think are easier to bogey or worse. So that's just how it is. Like they are for birdies, it's multiple good shots, if not like one incredible shot, especially when it comes to 18. But like on 17, it's like, yeah, technically you could chip one and then chip one and then chip one around, but you're talking about a tee shot with OB left and right.
Yeah.
And then if you land in the landing zone, cool, bunch of OB left and right, lots of wind, lots of elevation, lots of bunch of stuff. Ground play is different. You don't know. And it's also a shot that you don't know what the wind is doing down by the basket, because what you feel up at the top of the hill is very different from what's happening down at the basket. So, yeah, you're right, Bobby. It's like
They're separators.
There's always There's just it
I
just
think
seems
they're
like you
two of the best finishing holes on tour. Straight
Yeah.
up. I'll put it in there. I'll put that out there.
They're holes where, you know, if you have a 2-stroke lead, you're like, okay, you know, I can par and be, but then like if you're 2 back, you're like, if I get, you know, 3 out of the next 4 birdies, I'm in it.
Yeah.
Right.
So it's they keep it tight until the end. You know, the last 2 holes specifically, you know, you could have 4 strokes on those 2 holes pretty quickly.
Like this tournament has had multiple playoffs. Has had a lot of drama going into 18 almost every single year. So I would be shocked if we have in both divisions runaway winners. Like if both tournaments are like, cool, so and so won by 5 strokes over the field.
No,
I
don't see that happening at this course.
I don't either.
Yeah.
Like I think it'll be like, cool, coming into the stretch, it's between these 3 to 4 players, and they have 6 holes left, and this person's already in that, you know, is already if they don't do well enough, they're in that they have a chance to win it, like it's happened before. I see that happening in both divisions. So, yeah.
So hole 18, are you go? I can't remember historically, Eric. Do you go for it or you try to play it safe?
I go for it. If the wind is super up, I'll play the if it's a screaming headwind only, will I lay up.
Right.
But if it is a moderate wind, even if it's head, I still try and play across to give myself. I think it's easier. The shots that I like to throw, it's easier from going across than it is throwing over the water again. I haven't really dialed in that approach, but I'll do that if the wind is up, because I can't guarantee that I'm going to clear the water. But if it's like the wind we had today or the last couple days, it's been like, you have to be aware of it. It will flip your disc, but if you hit a disc clean enough, it'll probably make it over pretty comfortably, and you'll just be over there with a putt for a 2 and maybe an easy layup for a 3. So, yeah.
And you, James, you going for it?
Yeah, you know, I haven't seen that hole in super windy conditions yet. If it's like it was today, moderate wind, I'm going to go for it. Try to go by the basket. I like the layup over the water, but to the right.
Yeah.
You know, if it's super wind, just take, you know, my Omen or a Firebird type disc, and then like Eric said, that approach, that second shot's a lot easier to put close than it is if you lay up to the left and then have to go over the water for your second. So you know, we'll see kind of how the hole's playing, how strong the wind is, but I'm planning on going for the basket on that one.
Nice.
James, big arm guy.
Big arm guy.
He throws.
All right, cool. All right, well, thank you guys again for joining us, and I'll actually see
Thank
you
you,
guys.
Bobby.
I'll be
No, thank
there
you.
in Waco tomorrow.
No, thank you, Bobby.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Thank
So I'll see you tomorrow. Yeah. I'll see you guys tomorrow. And we'll be able to do some fun stuff for videos, things like that. So, but anyway,
Sweet.
thanks to our YouTube viewers and our Facebook Live people. Appreciate you tuning in. And to our audio listeners, we'll bring you some more content like this here in the future. So, but for now, thank you to James Proctor and Eric Oakley. Oh, real quick, since March 7th in 3 days, little shout out for Eric Oakley. He's got his Clash Disc Spice coming out, the release, and it's going to come with a
That good?
I can't remember I know the theme look, but is there a name to the theme of the stamp?
Nice. We haven't named the characters yet, but
Yeah.
the character on the disc is Tina inspired, and it's supposed to be the first introduction of the female hero in the story. So we have the main character, then the shinobi, the ninja that's been on the alpaca and the pathfinder, and this is like his first, like, I don't know, teammate, partner in fighting the Khan, the bad guy who's actually just been featured on the Halo Dynasty that just dropped last week or around Vegas time. So those are sick. So that was the first introduction to our villain. We had subtle hints to the villain in other Dynasty stamps, but that's cool. So it's really kind of cool to see us continuing that forward, and also being able to give Tina a shout out, because why not? She's banging. The cool thing about these spices, though, is that there's going to be basically 2 options of them. There's the ones that are available in Europe, which are single foil, and the ones that are going to be available in the States, which will probably be a limited amount, will be a triple foil. So I will have some of those, I think, in Austin. So sorry for those Waco goers, but just drive an hour and a half more down to Austin next week, and we will have them, along with a bunch of other stuff too, Bjorks, members, and other stuff. So but the spice is so good. I'm using it a ton on this course as well, and I am looking forward to hearing what more people can think of it, because, you know, it being available in the mystery box, there was limited numbers, but
right
now it's like there's enough for everybody. So go get yourself a hands on these spice, because you need more spice.
Yeah, you can go to clashdisc.com and see the retailers. And if you don't have it in your store, make sure you tell your store to get with either Power Grip or Infinite Discs to get some Clash Discs into their store. All right, gentlemen, again, thank you so much, and I'll let you get back to Waco, Texas, and whatever you need to do.
Thank you, Bobby.
All right.